Ali, as a self-confessed adrenaline junkie from an early age, was racing always something you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, I mean, I've been into racing, and I've been trying to get into racing for ever since I remember. And for ever since I remember, my parents have been trying to get me away from racing because of its all like risks and dangers, everything. And because my dad used to race motorbikes as well, and he had his fair share of accidents. So they tried really, really hard to get me away from racing, and I don't think that worked quite well. And here I am today.
Clearly it runs in the family then. What was it that attracted you to the particular discipline of drifting?
Well, ever since I remember being 6 or 7 and going to school one day, and I remember my dad used to have a Aston Martin Vantage, the V8 ones. I mean, they had pretty powerful V8 engines, around 400 horsepower engines, good torque, good sound. So I remember he used to power slide in and out the parking of my elementary school, and I remember loving that feeling, that rush. And I used to, I mean, that's the only way you could shut me up as a kid, is to like do a little drifting or power slides in and out the corners. And I think that's where this thing for oversteer began. And after that, I used to race remote control cars. And I remember even before that, that hobby developed into like professional remote control car racing. I used to like remove the tires off my little toy cars and like drift around and skid the cars and stuff. So I love the concept and the feeling of having to control the machine while it's out of control, and having to like power your way through corners and out of situations. So I think that's basically how it started.
You started drifting by borrowing your uncle's convertible 350Z, but I understand it didn't pass your first race inspection because it was a convertible. So what was your first competitive competition car?
My first competitive car was my Toyota Supra. I got that car when I was still a teenager. I was still in high school, and I mean, the car was in pretty stock condition. It was a factory car, and I used to drive it back to and from high school before we had a proper place to practice, because that time we didn't have a track, we didn't have a skid pad anyway to practice. So like we used to go to like little private farms and areas like of our relatives and friends, and had really small like parking spaces that we could like do tiny little burnouts and stuff. And when I was about 17, we had this official skid pad from one of the motorsport clubs in Kuwait that allowed us to actually go and train for the first time officially. So when that happened, I slowly started to modify the car. And I mean, the car developed and progressed as my skills did. So that's slowly built the car into a professional drifting car. And I entered my first competition, I think it was in 2012. And the first competition I ever competed in was in a Yas Marina circuit. It was an event called Drift UAE, and they had like different categories. They had the street, the semi-pro, and the pro categories. And I remember because it being my first ever competition, the committee didn't allow me to enter the pro division. And I remember having all these discussions back and forth, and like, try me, I can do it, and stuff. And they told me they'd keep an eye out in practice, and if they see that I have enough control not to like cause any risk and damage to other drivers, then I'll be allowed to enter the pro division. So after like 2 or 3 runs, they came and talked to me, and they said, okay, you're good to go. If your car passes inspection. They inspected the car was fully legal, and I ended up entering the pro category. So my first ever professional drifting competition, I entered as a pro, and the car caught fire, and I managed to get out the car safely, and that was my first experience. And I mean, I kept going competing in pro division ever since, and I think that helped me gain experience, because like I know a lot of the mentalities there at the time were just to get on the podium, no matter what the category, and just go back home a hero and get like show the trophy off and stuff. And I remember I always wanted to invest in experience and wanted to be like with the best out there, and I think that had a major role in the development of my skill per se.
Seeing drifting at the 2019 FIA Motorsport Games was a new experience for a lot of the spectators, and me as well actually, but only the year before, in front of 2,500 spectators, you managed to secure the 2018 Q8 King of Drift title. How was it for you arriving in Italy as a recognised champion in your sport?
Having secured the King of Drift Kuwait title, it wasn't for the first time. It was, I think, the third time around. And before even having that title, because King of Drift Kuwait is a event organized by Red Bull. It's called Car Park Drift. And car park drift is a little different than professional drifting or competition drifting that we do. Like the races I'm into and what I specialize in is tandem drifting, is twin drifting. Exactly the same as the events that are happening in the Motorsport Games and the FIA Intercontinental Cup. And but I mean, it's still a drifting event. It's still fun, but it's more of a show. So. When we came to Italy for the first time, I mean, I was pretty confident, but the only thing that was kind of a cause of, let's say, worry, or I wasn't really comfortable with, is because of the time frame. We didn't have enough time to get my own personal car and team to the event. So I was driving a car for the first time that we've hired from a team in Europe. So that was my only, let's say, that was my weakest link, because I never drove that chassis, and I never drove the track, and we had rain, and we were aquaplaning everywhere. So and unfortunately we had some mechanical issues during practice that didn't give me enough time to do full runs and get comfortable in the car. So we had gremlins here and there that like disrupted our race weekend, but still it was a really great experience, because having to do drifting in front of such a diverse crowd and like showing or showcasing drifting to the FIA and to the other racing disciplines, to the GT guys, the touring guys, the single seater guys. So I'm pretty sure because of drifting being such a new sport, I think a lot of the racing people have such a big variety of different backgrounds and ideas about drifting, and it was really nice for us to have a chance to finally showcase drifting for what it really is. But I mean, I'm not that happy for the results we got and for how the car and team performed that weekend. But hopefully next year will be different. We'll be competing in my own personal car, the Toyota 86, that I'm really comfortable in, and I think the car has so much potential. And I mean, next year will be really great, because I'll be showcasing my sport, my own car, my team, as well as my driving. So I'm really looking forward to next year.
You must be happy that the FIA included what some would describe as a lesser-known motorsport into the spotlight in 2019 Games, and they continue to support it into next year's competition as well.
Exactly. It is. I mean, ever since the FIA accepted drifting under its wings and had it as an official motorsport governed and controlled by the FIA, and we've been seeing a lot of changes, a lot of different let's say approaches to the sport. I mean, I remember when I started, we had a really tough time trying to explain drifting to a lot of people, even from the racing guys. I remember I joined the FIA Institute Young Drivers Excellence Academy back in 2014 or 15 it was, and I was the only driver there that was into drifting, and like I was amongst guys that did WRC2, Junior AARC, guys that did Formula 3, GP2. So like all professional drivers from a lot of different disciplines, and I was the only guy that came from a drifting background. And back then drifting wasn't an official motorsport, and I remember how people looked at me, all the coaches and everyone, and I still like managed to compete with the guys in all the tests and all the different variables and aspects of driving and racing. And I was sort of an ambassador of the sport back then in the FIA while it wasn't official, and having to see how this progressed into the FIA actually accepting drifting and holding such great events and finally acknowledging this sport is really rewarding to say. Like I've lived long enough to experience all of this, and I think I'm still at the beginning of this ever expanding sport, and I think it has more potential and has more room to expand, and I hope I'll be living through to see that happen.
What is it that you're most looking forward to about next year's games?
Well, I mean, there is no motorsport discipline that I wouldn't mind driving or I wouldn't love to be behind the wheel of. Like I'm a professional drifter, but I'm also an all-around fan and enthusiast and lover of this sport, of this racing. Anything that involves engines, I'm a sucker for. Even if it's not just four wheels, even if it's about motor racing, like motorcycle racing. So being there, like I remember growing up, I never loved to go to rate, like watch Formula One races, Grand Prix, or GT races, because I used to feel depressed. I got this really bad feeling because I didn't want to stand there in the grandstand and watch these races go at it. I wanted to be behind the wheel. So it was. I had mixed feelings that weekend because deep inside, I believe, like I really wanted to do all the disciplines. I wanted to be the driver that did everything. I wanted to get out of that GT car, get into the touring car, and then leave that car, get into the Formula 4 car. And I actually believe that I have, like, I could do it. But I mean, obviously you can't manage to do that. But in my little head, that was the scenario. So yeah, if it was up to me, I would drive everything. so yeah.
Who do you expect to see as your main competitor in the 2022 competition?
Well, first of all, I've never been to Paul Ricard, and I've loved this track ever since I was a little kid. And even though the drifting is not going to be at the main track, at the GP track, it's still going to be nice to be able to be at that venue and. From what I've heard and know, that we have a lot of new disciplines this year, so it's going to be a really, really action-packed weekend, and I think it's going to be a really good experience to see everyone and experience everything and see all the teams and all the guys, and and what I'm looking forward to most is to showcase my own car that I built here with my own father, and to show people what the car is capable of and what I'm capable of, and hopefully secure a spot on the podium this year. I mean next year, to be more precise. Yeah. Last year we had a lot of good drivers from Europe, but there were a lot of big names missing, and this year's FIA Intercontinental Cup saw a lot of the big names. So I'm pretty sure a lot of the big names will be competing in the games this year, like names like James Dean and all the other guys that are winning everything basically. So yeah, I'm looking forward to going against all these guys, and to be honest, I have huge respect for all the big names out there, but when I'm competing, I don't. I respect and have the same regards for everyone, and I think my biggest competition is myself and the car, and having to be able to manage to make everything work seamlessly. That's the objective, and that's the goal, and that's my main competition. And I think if we get that sorted out, it wouldn't really make a difference who we're going against.
Well, Ali, thank you for joining us, and we wish you all the best going into next year and beyond, and we'll see you this time next year in 2022 for more adrenaline and octane-fueled drift racing. We look forward to it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sheikh, for having me. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to meeting everyone. And I think this year is going to be different. It's going to be bigger, better, action-packed, and full of surprises, I hope. Good surprises. Yeah.